Welcome to Checks and Balances. I'm Michael Vincent. This is James Blair. And this week, with return of Amanda Quill, accounting manager, and she's here to tell us about Hnry versus accountants.
Amanda, back again. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
So, for those who don't know Amanda, how old are you?
27.
Just like a freaking weapon. Like, in terms of getting stuff done, very, very impressive.
Controversial question to start a podcast.
Yeah,
Just
I'll take it. Yeah.
Just how old are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd ask
It's
you,
a new
Mike.
norm,
I'm
right?
18.
Yeah. According to the Botox, it's 18. So, Amanda is, all things accounting. And today we're talking about, pretty much, we're talking about Hnry versus accountants. So, one for one, the battle for the ages. Let's start with just like really breaking it down, Amanda. Who needs an accountant?
Basically, anyone that's earning money that isn't employed in a salary job.
Right.
So if you're somehow earning money on your own accord, which like being a sole trader, that is in business. So if you're in business in any way where you take control of how you're earning your money,
cool,
then you need an accountant.
And for everybody out there who says to me, oh, Mike, but I'm a sole trader and I do my own accounts. And then I say, cool, the bank needs some financial statements prepared by an accountant. And they go, but it's in my Excel spreadsheet. I go, great, we're not getting a loan. Sorry.
Yeah.
Can you tell I've been through it before?
Yeah. So Amanda, anybody who's making money outside of PAYE, what are the most common types of ways
so
that
if we're talking about just individuals,
Yeah.
so sole traders and stuff. So it's anyone that's kind of doing gig work, bit of side contracting, or then you have people who actually start up a business. Maybe they're making clothes and selling them through TradeMe or Facebook, or maybe you're taking pictures and sending them. There's a whole range of ways that you can be in business.
Yeah.
Like anything that makes you money. If you're making over $200, you're in business.
Hey, Mike, you got to pay those bills. However, you got to pay those bills.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. We're in a recession, and then obviously the big one you've forgotten is a big part of Lighthouse is property tax returns.
Yeah.
So we've got our property investors as well, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if you're investing in anything, if you're investing in shares,
Yeah.
and if it's simple through something like Sharesies or whatever, it goes through to your tax return with IRD. So anything that's not automatically gone through to IRD, if there's not a big governing body that sends that information through.
Yeah,
Cool.
Everybody investing in those shares got to write off those losses.
So Hnry is accounting software. Let's take a step back in time. Xero comes along.
Yeah.
And, rest in peace, accountants. We thought it was the end. The software came along. I can do all my accounting myself. Xero has been around for more than a decade now, right?
Yeah.
Well over a decade. Why didn't Xero kill the accounting industry?
So Xero kind of came in with the idea that it could. People thought that might happen, but really Xero is set up for you to use alongside your accountant. Unless you've studied tax legislation, it's difficult to keep up with. There's absolutely people that manage to do their own accounts and do them correctly, stick to all the legislation rules and changes and things. But for the most part, it's misunderstood. If you're, a makeup artist, what care do you have about tax legislation? It's not fun reading unless you're like me and you think it's fun reading. So what Xero does is it provides the software that you can put your information through with your bank feeds and things. You can have everything tracking over. You can track projects and things. It's got great software, but unless you know what you're doing in terms of what needs to be done for your taxes and understand that, there's a high risk of doing it incorrectly. And then, you face the possibility of, IRD looking into it. And then, or like we said all the time, where people come to us after trying to do their accounts themselves and they're like, oh, I got talking to IRD and then they've reversed all these things and I don't know what's going on. Help.
Yeah. I guess the other thing is as any new software enters a market, everyone thinks this is going to be the death of this market. Actually, all it does is usually reduce the cost in some area that is quite a mundane bit of the market where it's quite transactional, and just changes the value proposition of what the actual person that gives the advice does in the market, right? And I think you saw that with accountants, where all of a sudden, instead of just doing the return, it's like, okay, what is my value proposition here? How do I maintain margins? And what is actually the advice that I can give to try and better people's businesses.
So like with using Xero as an accountant, you go from previously you were just trying to like look at people's numbers, whereas now you can look at the numbers and actually analyze them and give them some more insight into what's going on and things. And also on the reverse side of that, if your accountant's using Xero, you also have access to it so you can see things better. You know, no one opens up their bank account and is like, oh, I spent this much and I spent that much. But whereas in Xero, you group it together in things like Pocketsmith does for budgeting tools. And things.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest though. You guys do open up Xero and go, mortgages, you've spent this much this month. Your entertainment bills through the bloody roof. I'm like, if you guys would pay for something, it wouldn't be.
Yeah. When you guys get on the drink, you do get loose with the card. I think it comes down to two things, right, in terms of using an accountant. One is fear. So what is the implications if I get this wrong? And that's a scary thing. And the second is people just bad at admin. Like,
Absolutely right. Like if you're self-employed and you don't have an accountant, you need to file your returns by the 7th of July. So whereas if you have an accountant, you have through to 31 March the next year. So that buys you 9 months to avoid your admin. And then you get into contact with us in February.
Yeah.
But and like the worst part of most people's job is the admin side of things, right? So if you're self-employed and you're, out making money and things, the last thing you want to be doing is dealing with the admin part. You're like, that's the boring thing.
That's a really good point as well, is outsourcing something. Outsourcing something and you spending your time doing something where you can make money or wherever your skill set lies. So let's talk a little bit about what Hnry is. So can you give us a rundown? What is Hnry all about? What do they do?
So Hnry is another piece of software that is just purely designed for sole traders and self-employed contractors and things to manage their accounting. So it does the actual end of year accounts and it handles the GST. It also handles your payments to IRD, which is a massive thing, right? Because it is very hard when you first start out to know what to pay, when to pay, and not to get lumped with this massive tax bill at the end. Whereas, so what Hnry software does is it calculates based on what you're earning to pay the tax as you're going. So kind of like your PAYE role. And then it also you upload your expenses and things. It tracks all that. End of year, it spits out your return. Done. Easy.
And does it do it properly?
Yeah, as far as so we have clients that use Hnry but also use us because there's different reasons you'd use each. As far as I have seen, everything's been hunky dory.
Cool. Right. Yeah, because that was my initial thought with these sorts of pieces of software is it's data in, data out.
Yeah.
And with any sort of automated system that processes data just based on a schedule or an algorithm or some logic, it's only as good as the data you put in.
Yeah, 100%. So that is, I don't have any personal experience with using Hnry, but from clients that we have had that have used Hnry, some of them, because they already knew kind of what to provide, they'd had an accountant before or they'd an understanding enough of what they were getting into with being a sole trader, they knew what to provide Hnry. For others who are time poor and weren't willing to kind of read all the prompts that Hnry provided them, they hadn't provided as much expenditure as what they could have. And so when we got talking to them, we were like, actually, you can claim a few more expenses. But I think that also comes down to what effort you're willing to read into it for being a contractor and things.
Yeah. So is Hnry because for somebody to be able to do something by itself, it must be sort of following the bouncing ball type thing and making it really easy for somebody to...
And I mean, have you been on Hnry's website?
I have not.
Okay, so they...
That's why I'm here.
Yeah, cool. So, I mean, they have loads of resources available so you can kind of see what you need to do. Lots of really friendly videos for a quick little summary of what to do and things. And as far as I understand it, they do prompt you for what you should put in. But then that comes back to what industry are you in and what work are you doing. And if you're not having a conversation with a person... sometimes you don't get to the bottom of that. And they do, as far as I understand, have really good support staff and things, but you have to reach out for that. And so if you're just going, it's a software, it does everything, and that's where you close your book on it, that might be the end result you get is because you didn't do enough yourself.
So the benefit of Hnry is if you are self-employed or a contractor, it's pretty much a one-stop shop.
Yeah,
you can deal
absolutely
with everything.
can be.
Okay. What about pricing?
Yeah, so their pricing is 1% plus GST on, I think it was every dollar of sales or income. and then that gets capped up to $1,500.
Okay. For a second, I was like, you and I were just like,
no. So
I was like, these guys are making bang.
I was like, we need to change the model.
No, so it's a really like, and that's a scary thing for a contractor or a sole trader, right? If you are going into it and you're like, oh, I need an accountant, but like looking at websites, I'm only, maybe I'm earning $10,000 a year from being self-employed, and I have to do this tax return. I'm going to spend $2,000 on an accountant or something in that range. It's going to put you off. This is simple. It's got a fixed fee based on the income. It's kind of a no-brainer in that situation. And like, quite often if you are only earning $10,000 a year for your sole trader, like your accounting fees wouldn't be $2,000, but it can be scary.
You just keep it in cash, wouldn't you? $10,000.
But like talking to a professional is like, it's a scary thing to do because you're like, what bill am I going to receive?
Yeah.
And so that's where it's nice. They've got it very upfront on their website, 1% plus GST.
Yeah. And say if it's up to $1,500 for a self-employed person to go through Hnry, for a traditional account with a lighthouse or another accounting firm,
so
how much does it
if
cost?
it was a similar amount of work, it would be around the same kind of pricing, but that's for year ends, right? We're not going to pay your GST for you. We'll give you reminders. We're going to tell you how much income tax to pay, and we're going to give you reminders, but we won't do the payment part. That's a whole AML thing that just is not worth it for accountants. Whereas Hnry being a different model, being software, I don't know what background they've gone to all that, but like, they've decided that that's the way that it's going to go. It's all done through the computing system and things like,
Did you just say the computing system?
I know.
Yeah. Way to sound way older.
I'm old. It's on the line.
You've definitely done like the work of enough work to be like in your 50s. And what are the limitations of Hnry? So they work really well for self-employed people. You get a lot of stuff for 1% or 1,500 plus. Just where is it like this doesn't work?
Yeah. So I mean, if you have anything outside of that simple,
everything else,
basically.
Yep.
So anything outside of being a simple contractor or a sole trader, you're probably going to need an accountant on the side of that. If you have an investment property, if you're looking at trading shares, if you're wanting to expand or something, you want some advice about where to go next with your business and things like that, that's where Hnry's going to be limited, because their idea, as I understand it, is to do the compliance side and stop at the compliance side.
That's what they're saying for now.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
GBT,
and like
all the AI.
I think they've been around since 2017. So the 6 years they've been around, the growth has been massive. Like, take it back 5 years, I think I'd heard of a few people using Hnry. Now, basically every contractor is like, oh, I'm using Hnry, but can you guys do this for me? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. That works for us. Like, why not?
Yep. Cool. Okay. So that's the limitations. It works for self-employed people, contractors.
They've got a small scope of what they want to do.
Okay, cool.
But they do it well.
Yep. Anything else to touch on with Hnry?
No, I mean, I think it's one of those things. If you're a sole trader or self-employed and you want a simple place to start, it's a great tool.
Great.
Like, we're not scared of Hnry coming into the accounting market.
Yeah, cool. I mean,
you should be.
Probably.
Yeah, I'm generally
just scared of computers, right?
Yeah, I am a bit scared of computers. You scared of computers, Mike?
Nah, and I don't get the AI thing where everyone's like, it's going to take over the world. It's going to do this. I'm like, is it? Or is that just a marketing thing from someone who works in AI being like, you should give me more money because I'm working on this super cool thing?
Well, 100%. Otherwise, like things like Hnry wouldn't have support staff.
Yeah.
Because you still need human interaction. You still need someone to override sometimes.
To be fair, you and I 5 years ago were at a pub at 3 a.m. where you were telling me that computers would take over the world, none of us would have jobs, and we'd all be French-speaking beekeepers just doing hobbies. Okay,
and the reason, like 90% of that story is true. However, James has never been at 3 a.m. in a pub in his life. It was about 7 p.m. It was just about to get in a cab to go home, and you're lucky.
It felt like 3 a.m.
All right, let's wrap it up.
Okay, check out Hnry if you are self-employed. Otherwise, check out our great accountants at Lighthouse. If you need a property tax return, you're running a business, there's anything else you need to talk about, please give us a review, make sure to subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.
Cheers.
Thanks.